From the John DeVito Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, November. November the 8th. And now, here they are, live in person, with a smile on their face, Jim and Rich.
And a song in our hearts.
Yeah.
Hey, Ed, I hate to start this off with bad news, but this is Tuesday when we're doing this, and about half hour ago, the news broke that two-time Cy Young Award winner and eight-time All-Star Roy Halladay died in a plane crash.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that just was reported about a half
hour ago.
Within the half hour.
Yeah.
I thought you were actually gonna, with on that sad note, I thought you were gonna say that you celebrated your 66th birthday.
Well,
late last month.
That was another. That was another.
That was
thing.
another depressing thing, right?
That was well, actually, it turned out.
That's good.
What did we do that night? Oh, we went back to. We were in Michigan. We went to Dana's hometown. Had dinner with some friends. Visited with Dana's next door neighbor, who also has an October 30th birthday. And the next night in celebration on Halloween, when we were back in East Lansing, we went to see a really good show, Lyle Lovett along with John Hyatt.
Oh, Jim, at least you're still here. I mean, the Ridgewood family.
It's been a tough week for Ridgewood.
Has been hit hard the last couple of weeks.
Wow.
And, I just have to say, I want to mention the names. Bobby Miller, who a lot of us knew.
Yeah.
Bobby Miller played minor league baseball for my dad starting when he was about 8 with the Saints, and was an excellent football player at Ridgewood High School. He's sort of a legendary character, I would say.
A character, for sure.
A definite character. And then... I don't think I'm not sure if you knew Nate Thurman.
No, that name just didn't ring a bell with me when I saw that.
Kevin was in my brother's class, so they obviously wasn't in school when we were in school. He was a teammate of mine on the softball field, and an excellent defensive first baseman. And then Judy DeFelice, born Judy Baker, and her husband and another former teammate of mine, football-wise, Rick DeFelice, both passed within the last 4 or 5 days.
4 or 5 days.
So it's been a rough 2 weeks for the Ridgewood family, and especially the Ridgewood sporting family, because all of those people were participants in some activity. I know that Judy was either a cheerleader or a prom. Rick was football, wrestling. Nate was baseball, and Bobby Miller was football. So rough 2 weeks for the extended Ridgewood family.
Rough couple of weeks. Didn't you tell me that? Didn't you text me that Al Marks said that Bobby Miller would only show up on game day?
Yeah, the great story that Coach Marks told me. He said, Rich, he said Bobby Miller would, and Mike Mariani obviously was an old school coach.
Yeah.
And he said, Bobby never practiced during the week. He said he'd just show up to the game on Saturday, and he'd play middle linebacker, and as a coach described him, he was sideline to sideline making plays. So
he doesn't want to be confused with a lot of details.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, just let me go and play. That's it. I think that was the strategy with him. So. But at any rate,
Bobby Miller was what year?
He would have been. Bobby was a freshman when we were seniors.
Okay, so yeah, I was trying to remember.
Artie Monaco.
Yeah.
Donnie Grung. Dave Wyatter.
Okay.
I would say. I think Keith Wilson.
Yeah,
guys like that.
I was trying to place the year, and Rick DeFelice
would have been 1 year behind us.
Yeah.
In fact, Jim, I was talking with Coach, and because he was a little confused about, well, he knew where Bobby was, but he was just starting to coach, and he said, well, where was Rick in relation to you? And I said, he was a year behind us. And I said, in fact, he had said that one of the things that initiated the change from Coach Martwick to Coach Mariani was that group, which would have been juniors when we were seniors, had a pretty good year under under Martwick, but the people who were involved at the time thought that they should have done better. And I said, that's a very valid point, because I said when we were seniors, we didn't have very many seniors, and we didn't have very many seniors who started. I said, Bill Caravia was our center. Walt McNeil played guard. I was tight end. Danny Miraz was split end. Smiley Offenlock was the quarterback. On defense, I believe Fred Smolinski probably started maybe at the nose, and Denny Smith was a defensive back. So you had probably about 7 seniors that started.
Who was the running back then? Was that Mark Carlson?
Would have been DeFelice, Carlson, and I want to say Joe Daniels was a defensive end. Randy White, I think, played a little bit.
Okay.
And but the main guys were Carlson and DeFelice running wise.
Yeah. And Carlson should have been our year.
Yeah, Carlson was actually
he
should
was
have
our
been our
age.
year. The other thing that hurt that team, experience-wise and skill position player-wise, Rudy Wyatter had been all-conference at running back as a junior and chose not to play as a senior.
Okay.
So, but when you talk about a team that was ready to play, you had juniors, Bruce Ogrodnik, Bruce Alvino, Mike Georgianis, Art Sorganani, Nick Battaglia, Jimmy Warren, Carlson, DeFelice, Jimmy White, Rich Angelo, all of those guys, and I'm probably missing a guy here or there, Joe Daniels. All of those guys got considerable playing time. Paul Fry and Steve Bush came up from the sophomores and got some experience. So that next year's team had a lot of experience.
Good ball club.
Yeah, very
Good ball club.
So
what do you want to talk about today? Where did we begin since the last time we were together, which seems so long
what
ago?
did you think about the World Series?
I'm trying to figure out. Well, first of all, this was an entertaining series, and both teams, it was nice to see the two best teams make it.
Yeah, that was different.
And you had the best team in each league. Wow.
Yeah.
Just like the old days.
Yeah. Yeah, just like the old days is right.
Just like the old days when both teams, your best team would make it. I'm trying to figure out. I'm going back to a couple of things that we texted along the way and maybe touched on along the way. Who lost the series for the Dodgers? The fact that Yu Darvish was absolutely awful in his 2 games, or Dave Roberts just misusing and abusing his bullpen?
Yeah, when you lose a series like that, there's a lot of things. I mean, Darvish was definitely not effective, and I was when I got to the 7th game, it was already in progress, and I think Darvish was already out. And
when I turned it on, he was already.
Kershaw was in.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking to myself, well, if you thought you could use Kershaw, and I think Kershaw ended up working 4 innings, and I think the only reason he left is because they needed to pinch hit for him. If he was good enough to go 4, why didn't you start him? I thought for sure he was going to start that game.
Yeah,
especially when Darvish had been roughed up in Game 4. And the other thing is, Roberts is getting a lot of heat. But, I'm thinking to the Cubs-Indians series and then watching the Dodgers and Astros. A.J. Hinch was basically forced because Ken Giles was not effective into doing something different. But I would say Dave Roberts, Joe Madden, Terry Francona, who are all supposed to be good managers and are good managers, all were in the same box. Here's what I don't understand. You require in the major leagues today a 12 to 13 man pitching staff during the year. Fine. But you get to the playoffs and you're using 6, 7 guys.
There was there was one game where Roberts used 9 pitchers.
But what I'm saying, Jim, is that they lean on a certain group of guys, and other guys just sit there and don't pitch at all. So I guess my question is, why do you need those guys then during the season?
Yeah,
and
go ahead. Finish.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
There was an interest, and I wish I could go back and find this one again, but there was an interesting article that was up on Fangraphs during the course of the playoffs, talking about our managers causing injury to their relief pitchers during the playoffs. Because all of a sudden you've got starters who are mentally set and physically set to go 6 innings, 7 innings, hopefully 6 now. 7 is rare. Going 3.
Yeah.
And you have relievers who might be only cycled to go 1 inning, having to go 2 innings, 3 innings, and essentially throwing as hard as they can for 3 innings. What are you doing to them physically?
I find myself in a little bit boxed in a little bit on this type of conversation because you and I, and I'll say me because I'm not going to speak for you, we'll say, they're major league pitchers. We've said, why can't starters go longer? I don't know why that wouldn't apply to relievers as well. But I think the point, though, based on what's happening today, is really valid because when I was shocked when I think it was the first game back in Los Angeles, so I guess Game 6. I want to say, was it Kershaw or Hill? Hill, I think, was pitching. Did he start that? Yeah, it was Hill. And I think he went for... He'd only given up a run. And Roberts, to me, now it's a little bit of a panic type managing the way I look at it. Now he goes to Maeda for 2, way earlier in the game than he would normally use him.
Yeah.
I have to say, I almost said to you, it would have been, I want to say it would have been Game 4. I almost texted you, Jim. I'm watching one of the first 3 games, and Maeda, who had been lights out against the Cubs, it was game 2 or 3. The Astros didn't get him for any runs, but they hit a couple balls to the warning track. I think they might have got a base hit in there, but he retired him with no runs. Well, Game 4, it might have been, comes up. It was one of the games in Houston, and Maeda's in, and the batter was going to be Altuve, and I almost texted you and said Altuve's going to take Maeda deep. And he did.
And he did. He did.
And it was strictly from what I had seen with Maeda the previous time he pitched because, again, the Astros didn't knock him out of the box. But where he had been, the Cubs had been swinging and missing. Houston was putting the bat on the ball and hitting it pretty well, just not long enough. But they were hitting them with no problem, just not finding open spots in the field. So I guess to get back to the main point, now you've got a guy who maybe had been overused. Now you're using him even earlier. You bring in Jansen, and I think Jansen went like 3 in one of those games, and he did fine. He was lights out. I think in Game 6, he did a real good job. He did more than 2 innings in 6. But I guess the point is none of them, except in little spurts, was effective in the World Series as they had been prior to that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, again, even though, in ideal world, I think as major league pitchers, they should be able to bounce back and pitch. I guess in reality, in today's world, they can't.
I guess they can't. I mean, the one night, I hadn't watched the game. Honestly, I'd forgotten about it. Didn't even turn it on. And you had texted me that you thought Roberts was managing this like a Little League game where everyone has to get a chance to play.
Well, yeah. The reason I said that is that at one point, now think about the Astros bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
The only lefty that he brought out of the bullpen, and he used him minimally, was Liriano.
Yeah.
Every other
Yeah.
reliever in the Astros bullpen was a righty.
Yeah.
So at some point in the game you're talking about, now he's used everybody. I mean, but he pulls Bellinger, and I want to say Culberson, who was very effective and had a good series, effectively was his replacement. Now, he didn't play first. They switched it around. Somebody else played first, but Culberson was in Bellinger's spot in the order, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? This is an extra inning game. Houston is righty reliever heavy, and you're taking one of your best left-handed hitters out of the game and replacing him with a guy who had like 2 at-bats in the majors all year. Now, again, who am I talking about here, Jim? The shortstop that they brought up and played against the Cubs, and then
Yeah.
I can't think of
I
his
just
name.
went
I
blank.
just said it. Now I can't think of it.
Seager?
No,
no.
Seager's the regular shortstop.
Regular guy.
Was it Thorson?
Thorson, maybe.
Yeah, Thorson. No disrespect to him, but he was moving. I think in that game, who was the outfielder?
Which
That
game?
got
Which
moved.
game are we talking about here?
I
I'm losing
want to
track.
say it was probably game. It was one of the Houston games. It might have been game 4, possibly.
All right. Because I was just flipping back.
But he used everybody off the bench. There was not anybody that he didn't use. And
Yeah.
But I put it this way: I have no problem with using everybody off the bench, but the way he was using them was making no sense to me.
Yeah.
It was almost like he was just putting them in to put them in the game.
When you texted me that, and I hadn't turned on the game. I didn't even know.
Culberson is the guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Culberson. And he did not play in Game 3.
So it would have been maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, but my first thought, and what I did was grab the phone and I looked at Yahoo Sports and I looked at the box score, and looking at it, and I'm thinking. My first reaction was, he's trying to manage a National League game in an American League park.
Mm-hmm.
Substitutions, pitching changes, bring this guy in, bring this guy in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I thought, he's over managing.
He in that game, he definitely way overmanaged. I mean, there's no doubt. Because even if he would have been in a National League game, the moves that he was making didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so, I have to say this, though. I don't know if I texted this to you or not. In the Cubs-Dodgers series, you had to hate Turner because he was killing us. But the more I watched him in the World Series, the more I am sold on Justin Turner. Really good ball player.
He is a good ball
Very
player.
good team player.
We were watching and calling him Animal from the Muppet Show.
Yeah. I like him, and the thing that strikes me about we're armchair experts, but the experts, the Dodgers are going to be loaded and ready for bear in 18. But I see the Dodgers and the Astros, same thing, really good, talented ball clubs, but so hard to go through what they went through, and then bounce back without any effect at all the next year. It's tough.
That's a tough thing to do. We saw that. We finally
With
got
the
a chance
Cubs.
to see that this year.
Yeah.
And
And did you see where Theo was saying, because, we're going to have to potentially replace
at least
Davis, Arrieta,
you've got two starters,
Mackey.
two starters in the bullpen, and one in the bullpen, right?
And whether that can be done is, who knows. But Epstein basically said in the paper within the last 2 weeks, he said, "Now, hey, if we have a year where we win in the high 80s and hopefully maybe squeeze out a division championship and get into playoffs, you know, the essential thought of what he was saying is, hey, we're still hoping for the playoff for this year, but we may not be back as strong until 19."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but
Yeah.
the thing that bothers me, Jim, though, is so many of the pundits and so many of the fans were so upset with the Cubs this year. And I'm thinking, you know what? Every ride to these playoffs is not going to be a smooth one. It just doesn't work that way.
No. Last year was just magic.
Yeah, it was. It was phenomenal.
That was an exception. That is not the rule.
It isn't the rule.
I mean, you look at the year the Dodgers had with a 17-game winning streak and I think a 17-game losing streak.
Yeah, they had two big. Yeah,
You had the stretch in August where the Astros were like 10-17
yeah.
during that stretch, and I can't remember who it was getting nervous. One of the ball players was getting nervous and getting upset about this, and Brian McCann just looked at him and said, "Dude, relax. We're 10.5 games up."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was just both teams had the years where everything fell into place,
Yes, yeah.
and you give them credit for what they did. I honestly, as I think about this, and you start to think about Theo's philosophy of building from the ground up, meaning building from the minor league level,
Yeah,
and the fact that what was once one of the top 5 systems in the game is last time I saw a rating was 25th.
yeah. I could believe that.
I could very easily believe that, considering what they gave up for Quintana,
Yeah,
and I think it's going to be great for both teams, the Sox and the Cubs. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you see an 81-81 Cub team next year. I wouldn't be shocked.
no. I mean,
Start to move up and start to move up a little higher.
yeah,
And I wouldn't be surprised that, even though they made the qualifying offers out to Arrieta and to Davis, I think deep down inside they're going, don't take them.
yeah.
So they can get more draft picks.
Sure.
And there's going to be some of the core that's going to be traded this season, this offseason.
I'm not sure about that.
Somebody's going to go.
Well, I don't. Well,
I hate to see it, but
not really sure that I agree with that.
yeah.
I have to say that I don't know. I mean, a lot of people like Schwarber as the guy to go. Here's what I would say though: you have to keep in mind before you think about that. Zobrist is in his mid to late 30s,
37 or 38, I think.
so you're not going to have him that much
No.
longer. So in terms of do you want to have the flexibility that we've been able to have? I really don't see them. I don't see them trading. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't see it.
I see something, and I saw an article, and I didn't look at it because I was flipping through while I was driving, and we certainly can't read
Yeah,
that
you
while
can't
we're
do
driving.
that.
While we're
I know.
driving.
Not that
But
good.
apparently, the Giants are interested in Hayward.
Well, okay, that I could see.
That
That I could see because Hayward, although, you know what? I mean, Hayward's defense is stellar, but something is, I don't know what the heck. I heard, did you tell me, are you the person who told me, or somebody told me
if it's brilliant, I told
that
you.
when the Cubs brought Hayward over,
John liked that.
they wanted they changed this, they wanted him to hit the ball in the air more and take advantage of Wrigley Field.
Mm-hmm.
And something in his swing got screwed up. I still say Hayward, to me, a lot of times looked like he's hitting with the newspaper.
Yeah.
I mean, you think he puts a good swing on it, and the ball goes absolutely nowhere.
Yeah. There's so many things that you look at now. And I guess I was getting aggravated watching the game, some of the games. I mean, was every run in this World Series scored by a home run?
It was close.
It was pretty damn close.
It was close.
I said damn, John, so call the priest.
I know, I'm just thinking, because I was watching the game, and I'm just thinking what you had said.
It seemed like it.
Yeah, they were a
Because
lot of home runs.
and I'm tired of, I was starting to get like you. I was watching it and thinking, if I see that, if I hear Joe Buck say in our StatCast says that the exit velocity was 114.6 miles an hour, and the angle was 34 degrees, I'm going, why don't you just say,
Does
geez,
anybody care?
Does anybody care? And can't you just say, wow, he really hit the snot out of that one, didn't he?
Yeah, well, that's about the size of it. Yeah,
that's what it comes down to.
I was going to say,
and
Go
I'm
ahead.
looking at this, and I see somebody like Altuve, who's damn fun to watch.
oh, he's good ball player.
He's a good
Very
ball
good.
player, and he's fun to watch.
Yep.
But he can hit the snot out of the ball. He
Yeah.
can hit, 26, 27 home runs. I'm trying to remember small ball days, which didn't seem very long ago, where you move the runner along. And
Well, think about this, though, Jim. When you think about the type of thing they're talking about now, launch angles and things like that, and you see, a lot of home runs, but even more than home runs, a lot more strikeouts than ever
Right.
in the history of the game.
all right.
I was watching Chris Bryant during the playoffs. I'm thinking, man, he's putting a good swing at that ball. He's just not catching up to it. And I was thinking of the term, we used to just say, the guy is swinging through the ball, which to me sort of meant he was putting a good swing at it, but just not quite getting it.
Timing-wise.
And I started to think about all this talk about launch angles, and I'm thinking, I think that's the difference in, at least average-wise, as Bryant as a hitter in 16 versus 17. I think he's trying to elevate that ball, or they're encouraging him to do that, and he's getting a lot more swings and misses. Because the swing looks good, but he's just not catching up with the ball.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know what? Let's get back to putting the bat on the ball.
And it's, it comes to the point where what is batters trying to counter? They're trying to counter the fact that you've got pitchers throwing a lot harder.
Yeah.
But the other thing you're going to have to think about too is you got some staffs, Astros for one, maybe the Dodgers too, throw a lot more curveballs than they do, a lot more breaking stuff than they do fastballs. And when you're looking at it, and I know how much you love stats with the way things, but when you're looking at it, you see, well, your opponents are hitting 272 when you throw a fastball, but they're hitting 217 on the breaking stuff. What are you going to throw?
Yeah. But breaking stuff has always been harder for most
Breaking
guys
stuff
to
is
hit anyway.
Yeah, but it's getting to the point now where, okay, we can't overpower them. We may set them up with a fastball, but then we're going to hit them with the breaking stuff, and they're not going to be able to hit it.
Well, after watching the World Series, Jim, try this little theory on for size. When the league was 16 teams, 8 teams in each league, I think, you had good pitching, but you also had good hitting and a lot of good hitters. When you watched what eventually happened in a 7-game series in the World Series, and going back to using the bullpen a lot. Okay, I think probably Maeda and Jansen, who have really good stuff, and other guys who on both sides have good stuff. And all of a sudden, the hitters are starting to hit them. It's because, okay, I don't care how good your stuff is. Now the hitter is seeing you almost every game. And you know what? Either the hitter is getting used to your stuff, or he's figuring out maybe you have a little pattern that you're developing, so he's figuring that out. So he becomes more effective as a hitter. And I think what's happening is not that the fastballs, the fastballs are faster, the breaking balls are very good, but I think what happens is you see your opponents far less now than you did when there was half as many teams. Mm-hmm. And that has affected the pitching in a more positive way and affected the overall hitting in a negative way. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that's just a theory I'm throwing out. I don't know if that's the case.
I don't know. That would be interesting to start tearing apart stats and looking at it.
Yeah.
And compare these last – I'd love to just sit down if I have the time, look at decade by decade and see what's changed.
Yeah.
Hey, we're almost to the first half of the our little nonsense here. John, you want to fix what we've broken? Since it is a station break.
You are listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, November the 8th, the year 2017 with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and Jack Frost, 88.1 WXMS Harwood Heights. And now, friends, back to Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro.
I should mention, and I never plug it, and I've tried to be a little bit better putting our stuff up on it. You can find us on Facebook at Local Legends / The World as We See It / Armchair Experts. That's our page.
Excellent.
That's our page. And we've got a few of our, I've every time I see it posted, I try to bring over our most recent show and get up there. I did that a couple of weeks ago and brought up a few of our recent shows. A couple of people have actually liked it. And what?
Anybody I know?
I actually did a little promoting on the show and put it out there and advertised it. Okay. Spent a few dollars from our vast advertising budget of about $9 or $10. And I have some people who actually looked at our.
Are they anybody we know?
No, I don't.
Not anybody we know. Okay.
I don't know who any of these people are, but thank you all for doing it.
Yeah,
and
no doubt about it.
I even posted a little something this week that the other day I got a thought in mind, and I said one of the things we've talked about but never got around doing was posting blogs or articles about things on our mind, as feeble as they might be. Oh. One topic we've been on before, the Baseball Hall of Fame. We generally have no complaints about the players selected, although Ray Shaw, come on. Anyway, Armchair Experts will be starting to name their Hall of the Very Good in the weeks ahead, plus a couple of interesting players who had nondescript major league careers, but their minor league careers were amazing. In the meantime, we'll have another hour or so of our nonsense coming up this week talking about World Series, Bears football, and whatever else crosses our mind. There's two players I'm talking about. I found another one. I mentioned about the ball players.
Oh, okay.
I mentioned about Joe Martina, who won 6 games in the majors and 349 in the minors.
Wow, Joe Martina. Okay.
Here was another one that surprised me.
Who's that?
Jigger Stats.
Oh, Jigger Stats was a great minor league hitter.
3,453 hits, I believe.
Yeah. What do you realize?
I did not. I did not know that. I'm starting to,
that the major leagues was so. I don't know. I'm going to use the wrong word here, but picky. Let's say, or could pick and choose.
Yeah.
That when I look at Jigger Stats as major league, and there's somebody else there that's in that category. Did fine hitting wise, but the fielding was just not quite up to snuff. And what happens today is that is sort of overlooked. I mean, if you can hit the ball, they'll overlook a few fielding woes.
Sure. See,
And
see
so,
Kyle.
yeah,
See Kyle Schwarber.
Although I think he gets a bad rap. Schwarber is a lot better than people give him credit for. I have not, once in a while he will make a bad play, but he makes a lot of good plays, in my opinion. So
Some things are an adventure when he's out there.
I don't see it that way. I mean, I really don't. I mean,
He's not George Bell quality. George Bell used to surround things when it was hit to him.
By the way, Jim, I wanted to say, when you talked about the Hall of the Very Good, and do you ever have like a sports figure? Do you have names pop into your mind at all?
Oh yeah. Now, since I've been with you doing this nonsense, I'm getting like you. I suddenly get these names that come in.
Last night, 2 names bounced into my head. They have nothing to do with each other. One was Willie Besmanoff. Willie Besmanoff was a heavyweight contender in the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
Fought all the big guys, Ali, Liston,
Boy, that one.
Zora Foley, Eddie Machen, all of
Okay.
those guys. German heavyweight. I guess he as a kid, spent a little bit of time in Dachau and was liberated from there before anything really bad could happen. So, and the other was, and if you're a Cub fan, you have to go back to 1962 to remember this name.
Kuno Berrigan. No.
Tony Balsamo.
Tony Balsamo.
Yeah.
Oh.
Tony Balsamo.
I found
yeah.
that name as I'd been going through Baseball Reference, trying to look at the Hall of Fame indexes to try to see see when we could name our Hall of the Very Good, and we may even have to go down to the Hall of the Good.
The Hall of the Good. I think there. Yeah, you could do that easily.
Yeah.
There's a book out, and I can't remember the title of it. And what the guy is doing is making cases for guys at each position that he thinks should be in the Hall of Fame. The 2 that I can remember, because I just quickly glanced through the book, he was making a case for Ted Simmons, and if you look at Ted Simmons' record, at least hitting wise, he's got a very good case for being there. The other guy was Larry Walker.
Larry Walker, yeah.
But he goes position by position and makes cases for different players.
Yeah.
And then compares them to players that are already there. And a lot of times the players who are there have lesser stats, if that's what you're looking at, than these guys. Jim, one of the things that, not that it bothers me, because you know that I'm a proponent of, I think, there should be more guys in there than less. But one of the things that I don't see is, and maybe it was just the press building these guys up, but when we were starting to be baseball fans or football fans or whatever fans, we had legendary players. I mean, Mickey Mantle was a legendary player. Sandy Koufax is a legendary player. I see guys making it that I'm not going to complain that they make it, but they don't reach that status in my estimation.
Okay, now that brings up an interesting point. Do you think, as you watch the game, as you watch the game now, are players continuing to improve?
Well, I mean, if you look at the using stats, I don't know that I would say that they're not improving, but their numbers are less because of the way the game is looked at today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not finding. Did any major league pitcher win 20 games this year? If they did, there was only maybe one, and I doubt if one.
No,
not even.
I don't
one.
even think so.
When you look at Jose Altuve hitting like 340 something, that's astronomical today. But it wasn't. I mean, Babe Ruth averaged 342 for his lifetime.
Career.
So and I think Ty Cobb was probably higher than that.
367.
So I just think my own feeling is that human potential only goes so far. So You know, when Barry Bonds hit 70, whatever he hits, 3 home runs, I don't think you're going to have anybody hit 80 home runs. I don't think you're going to have, we've already had guys hit 400, and nobody's even come close in what, 60 years or more?
More than that.
Yeah.
76 years.
I shouldn't
75
say
years.
there,
76 years.
There have been guys who come
1941.
close, but they haven't done it. Let's say
haven't
that.
Ted Williams was the last.
He was the
1941.
last, and I think George Brett was probably the
Close.
latest to get as close as in the 390s. So, in one sense, I think the players they may be more athletic, and they're certainly good players, but I think there's no way that you're going to go beyond certain numbers. So
Okay.
if you're going to use statistics as maybe that, as that line of comparison, I don't think that they're not going to improve in that way. I don't think at all.
Okay. Let me just flip back to what we were talking about. Jigger stats in his major league career. 8 years, mostly.
Was he with Boston or
He
the
was
Sox?
He was with Boston for 2 games. He played from 22. Most of his major league career was between 22 and 25 with the Cubs.
Okay.
1 year he hit 1923. He hit 319. For his career, he was a 285 hitter. Not power, 17 home runs, but his minor league career. I can't just get minor league stats. I just want minors.
Okay.
Giving me everything. Okay, for his minor, it's still giving me everything. Crap.
It's not breaking it out for you on Baseball Reference at all?
No, I had it before, but it was like, well, it's showing me his minor league things, but it's not giving me totals. It's still just showing me the major league.
Okay.
But I mean,
Over 3,000 hits.
over 3,000 hits. When he left the Cubs, he spent a lot of time out in Pacific Coast League. 360 1 year, 332 another year. Here's 1 year. Well, of course, they played 180 games out there and whatever. 1 year he had 246 hits in 195 games. 201 hits in 161 games.
You know what, Chip? You know who is a guy, now Jigger stats, you're talking about a different category there. But when you look at your Hall of the Very Good, or maybe a guy who actually should be in the Hall of Fame, one guy that when you check his stats, not a big home run guy, but a guy who good average and a lot of hits, and played for some good clubs. I think he played for the Yankees quite a bit as Lefty O'Doul.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
yeah. But when are you gonna? Have you come up with any names for the Hall of the Very Good?
I've got some names already, but I don't have. I've got a Excel sheet with some of the stuff. All right, Lefty O'Doul. Now that you brought him up, I remember that name, Lefty O'Doul.
When you said the Pacific Coast League, he was a San Francisco
He
guy.
was a San Francisco Seal, I think.
Yeah.
Lefty O'Doul, in his major league career, 11 years, 1,140 hits, 349 average.
Yeah.
If you look at his kind of his indexes, his Hall of Fame indexes, the black ink leading the league, 11. Average Hall of Famer, 27. The gray ink in the top 10, 77. Average Hall of Famer, 144. Hall of Fame monitor, and a likely Hall of Famer has 100. His was 92. His Hall of Fame standards, an average Hall of Famer is 50. His was 31. He's certainly a Hall of the Very Good. It's interesting to look at the players that he's most similar to. Not a Hall of Famer among them. His similarity scores, and that's just strictly for his major league career. You have players like Rusty Greer, Mike Donlin, George Harper, Bob Neiman. I remember Bob Neiman.
Yeah, Bob Neiman. Sure.
Yeah, Jake Stenzel, Freddie Leach, Zeke Benura,
Okay.
Bob Elston could tell you stories.
Here's
about
where
Zeke Benura.
here's where this stats thing leaves me, because the guys. Okay, two names that I know a little bit about: Bob Neiman and Zeke Benura. There's no way those guys even came close to being 340 hitters even for a year, much less a career.
No.
So how is that comparison made then?
Explanation of similarity scores. Similarity scores are not our concept. Bill James introduced them in the mid-'80s, and we lifted the methodology from his book, The Politics of Glory. To compare players, one player to another, start at 1,000 points and then subtract points based on the statistical differences of each player.
Mm-hmm.
1 point for each difference of 20 games played, 1 point for each difference of 75 at-bats. There's about 8 or 10 other things on here. When I look at this, when I look at the similarity scores, basically, if we're starting at 1,000 points, and let's just say that it is supposed to be equivalent to 100%, when you start looking at the players most similar to him, you're getting into the point where you're starting. Rusty Greer is about 87.3% similar to him.
Mm-hmm.
Zeke Benura, 85.5%.
Okay.
It's just kind of interesting to see how that is. And what else is kind of funny when I get into these things like you do, when I get a name and I look at it, I start looking at, do they have similarity scores? Did they have enough of a career where they're similar to these, where there's some similarity? And I also look at the transactions they were involved in to see if any names pop up that make me go, oh, what was his career like?
Yeah.
Names that I remember in the past, like, from baseball history and that. In September 29th, 1922, the New York Yankees sent Lefty O'Doul to the Boston Red Sox to complete an earlier deal made on July 23rd, 1922. On July 23rd, the Yankees sent a player to be named later, Chick Fuster, Elmer Miller, Johnny Mitchell, and $50,000 to the Boston Red Sox for Joe Dugan and Elmer Smith. There's names from the past.
Yeah, those sure are.
Fresco Thompson, didn't he have a great career as a
He was,
scout?
I believe, a front office guy.
Front office guy for
either
the Dodgers. For the Dodgers.
Jim, I have to. You brought up a name here, Rusty Greer, and it's interesting when you read biographies of players, the way they look at certain guys. I just got done. Pudge Rodriguez has a new biography out, and remember when he was one of the names up for the Hall of Fame, and we were talking about. I think I said, well, to me, he's definitely a Hall of Famer, and I don't remember what your take on it was. In his book, he talks about how Johnny Bench, prior to the vote, said, and Johnny Bench and Rodriguez are the only first ballot Hall of Fame catchers.
Yeah.
And Johnny Bench said, listen, man, you should be a first team Hall of Fame first ballot Hall of Fame catcher. So in Bench's opinion, Rodriguez was in the same class as he was. But what was interesting is when Rodriguez was with the Texas Rangers, they had guys like Juan Gonzalez, Dean Palmer, Alex Rodriguez, Jose Canseco, a lot of big names. But he includes always, when he mentions that group of guys, he includes Rusty Greer, who was not as big a name as any of those guys, but obviously had the respect of those guys.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Did he play for the White Sox too at some point?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Not sure what he is.
Or am I thinking of another?
I want to say he might have played with the Tigers.
Yeah, he played with the. I know he played with the Tigers. I'm thinking of maybe somebody else, some other Rusty.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Rusty Coons.
Rusty
Coons. That's who I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking of.
Jim, we only have 10 minutes left or so. I
want to. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I wanted to
That's
get
fine.
to the kind of go back to the point where we were talking about baseball improving as the years went on,
Okay.
and the quality of the play and the quality of the players. What about football? Are the players that are so good, and I'm speaking of quarterbacks,
Oh.
are they so far above the rest of the league that
You're talking about they're far above the rest of the league as it's constituted now?
yeah, as it's constituted now,
Okay.
that their quality of play and maybe the quality of players that are surrounding them makes the rest of the league makes the rest of the league kind of mediocre. I mean, you expressed to me in a text a few weeks ago that I'm sick of the NFL.
Yeah, well, I'm sick of a lot of what's going on with I don't like the officials. I hate to say that because as somebody who officiates, you sort of feel like you're in a little bit of a brotherhood. But I think the officiating is not good. I'm not going to say terrible, but it's certainly not good. And then when I'm still trying to figure out how the play that Zach Miller got injured on, he didn't catch the ball. If you saw the guy, you saw what the guy's comments were as they went frame by frame, and several times he said, "There you see the ball on the ground. The ball's never on the ground." Like what is this guy trying to sell me?
I had to laugh because Rosenblum, the king of the cheap shots,
Yeah,
the head of the snark attack,
yeah.
had one of his articles a few days ago where he had his little blips about that, and he said the NFL, something to the effect that the NFL spent all that time and all that money to put out this video to support the fact that they think Zach Miller did not catch the ball when it would have been much simpler for them to just simply say, we're idiots.
You know what? Rosenblum's right, because when you have a league where, okay, Jim, you played football on the street, I played football on the street. Believe me, when you played tag football on the street, and there, you know what? Everybody knew when the ball was caught or the ball hit the pavement.
Yeah.
The NFL has made something that's, to me, seems fairly simple into something complicated. To me, when you can do that, you're screwed up. And the NFL is screwed up. I mean, I go back to when the Bears got the benefit of this call. It was the first game of the season a few years ago. Calvin Johnson had a catch for a touchdown to win the game.
Yeah.
And somehow it wasn't a catch, even though he caught it. And Zach Miller caught the ball a few weeks ago, but it wasn't a catch, even though he caught it.
Yeah.
How is that? How do you?
He didn't complete
explain
the
that.
Yeah, he didn't complete the catch. Well,
he didn't. Yeah.
tell me how that isn't a catch.
To me, it looked like a catch. I never. You know what? He cradled the ball in his arm. His arm was on the ground, but the ball, in my way of looking at it, never really was in danger of being on the ground. So, but back to your original question about the quarterbacks. I think Brady and Rodgers, I would say those are the two top guys, and they are in a league with anybody. There's a lot of other outstanding quarterbacks in the NFL. I think, I'm not going to name them all. But, Jim, think about it. I don't think that has been an exceptional – I don't think this is the exception to the rule in the NFL. I think as long as I've been an NFL fan, let's just say, and I may not have the names, all the names right, but let's go back when you and I first started to watch. Let's say Johnny Unitas and Y.A. Tittle, for instance, were at the top of the list, and you had guys like Bart Starr and Charlie Johnson, and Bobby Lane was finishing up his career. John Brody was a good quarterback. You could go on and look.
I used to think Brody was on the take sometimes.
A lot of people did.
But it was always interceptions thrown.
But even go back further to Sammy Baugh and Sid Luckman, and I'm sure there were lesser lights who were, there's guys who played in cities. Cecil Isbell. I mean, he played in a little town in like Green Bay.
Yeah.
He didn't get much publicity, but he was a fine quarterback. So I think this is nothing different. I think a lot of those guys that I just mentioned would have loved to play with the philosophy that the game is played with today, where hey, you're going to put the ball in the air at least 30 times and maybe 40.
Maybe 50.
Yeah.
It was interesting too because when I was driving over today, I had the radio on. I had the score on, and they were reading the top 25 quarterbacks in terms of efficiency rating, career-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think was number 25?
I don't know, Joe Namath.
Otto Graham.
Otto Graham.
And that's the first player on that list that played prior to 2009.
So all the other 24 are after 2009?
2009 and after.
And this is the quarterback rating
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
what they do?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Although I'm trying, no, it has to be. I'm thinking Steve Young was right up there, and Steve Young wasn't playing in 09.
No, he's prior to 09.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and
Well,
look at the list.
when they say this is, this is like when you see the last game, Trubisky had a 40-something point.
The
That's
quarterback
what we're talking
efficiency,
about
the
here, right?
efficiency, the quarterback
Okay.
efficiency ratings.
Yeah. I wonder in the quarterback efficiency rating, do they give any points for the quarterback's team actually winning the game?
No, there's nothing involved with that.
No, that's not a very important stat.
That's
is it?
not a stat at all. That's not a, there is a formula, and how do you determine that 158.3 is a perfect score?
Well, see, that's the one that blows my mind. When I see that on occasion in the paper, 158.3. I'm like, where does this 158.3 come from?
And I can't remember the formula, but I've read the components.
No,
I've read the components. Yeah. And why doesn't college use the same thing? Because a perfect score in college is completely different.
Oh, they use a system that's different?
They use something different.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the fact that in the pros, yardage from a sack is deducted from the passing yardage.
In the pros, it is.
I think it is. Yeah, and it's done some other way in a college. So
I'm curious what Billy Kilmer or Joe Cap's quarterback ratings would have been. Although their teams won quite a bit.
I turned the hotspot off. Otherwise, I'd be going to footballreference.com and we'd be looking it up. But maybe that's a subject for next time.
Jim, there's two things I wanted to throw at you. They've been on my mind. I was out with Tommy Lentine and his sons and his wife on Saturday over at Miller's. And I said to them, because I saw that I had seen the Northwestern score. Northwestern had been down 24-17, then they pull it out in overtime. I said, you know what? My hat's off to Pat Fitzgerald and his coaches and the players, because do you realize Northwestern can win in the Big Ten, but they're never going to win easy. Do you realize how what a grind that is?
Three overtime wins in a row.
And because Northwestern is never going to get the type of talent that other teams in the Big Ten get, but they still do a good job in winning. But once in a blue moon, they might run away with a game. But usually, it's going to be they're going to have to win and win by a whisker.
Yeah,
most of the time.
And I had to laugh because while we were away, that was the game against Michigan State played against Northwestern, and we were watching that, and I had to leave. I can't remember what we were doing that night. I can't remember what we were doing that night, but we left, and I didn't. And when I got to wherever we were going, I checked the score and found out that they lost in overtime.
Yeah.
And the next day, we had tickets for a musical event on the campus at Michigan State, what they call an annual thing they do with their music program called the Spartan Spectacular. We had the wind orchestra, the jazz octet plus one, and the marching band. Great show in the hall up there, Wharton Center, and it was really good. And I posted pictures and a couple of videos from one that I had taken, and I said, didn't have to watch the Bears this weekend. Instead, we just enjoyed the Spartan Spectacular. And a friend of mine whose lady is a Michigan State grad also. As a matter of fact, I think she's also a journalism grad like Dana. Had gone to the game at Northwestern, and I see a comment from Jim on there. He said, "Yesterday we were at the Unspectacular."
Oh, okay. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, Jim, and let me preface this by saying I'm a Joel Quenneville fan, but I'm thinking after seeing the Hawks.
By the way, he scrambled the lines again today.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's a natural thing for him.
Oh yeah.
After them being knocked out the last 2 years in the playoffs and getting off to a sort of slow start this year, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not saying this is intentional, but I want to say Quenneville's been the coach for, 8-9 years maybe?
He might be in his 10th season.
10th season.
At least 8 or 9 years.
Has his message been, and again, I'm not saying intentionally, but has his message sort of been tuned out?
I've wondered that.
Yeah.
I have wondered that. And you know what? I mean, you've got guys who've been here through the whole run.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're starting to think, is this good?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything he's doing wrong, but I remember who was the Northwestern basketball coach prior to college? Bill
Carmody.
Carmody. I thought he did a good job coaching, but at some point, doesn't matter what the name of the coach is.
No,
you get to a point where that's it. Okay, your shelf life is over, and I'm wondering, again, I wish that the Hawks have a great season. They win the Stanley Cup, and Quenneville is all part of it. But my feeling is maybe they're at that point where they, even if it would be the same message, they need to hear it from a different voice.
It's very possible. I mean, and he may say that too.
Mm-hmm.
He may say that same thing too.
He may. I think he may.
By the way, I'll give you a good book for an interesting read. Terry Boers has a new book out.
Okay.
On his 25 years at the Score, and Rosenblum in an article referred to it as his potty mouth book, and it's very funny.
Okay.
Very funny and a good read.
I thought maybe when you got that smile on your face that when you touted Boer's book that maybe you were going to get a little cut or something.
No, I paid for my book already. I'd love to
Okay.
get him to autograph it because everybody who's listened always loved Uncle Terry. Like the crotchety old uncle that he is, and it's a good book.
Okay.
It's a good book. All right, I think it's called The Score of a Lifetime.
Yeah. Okay. 25
years talking sports.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice work.
It was interesting that one of the things they talked about. He has a whole chapter devoted to Mike Ditka, and he talked about the fact that he never got along. He didn't want to host all that, and Diana Ditka came up to him one point in time just prior to that hosting and called him. Well, let's see. It's one of those 7 words that you can't say on TV or radio, and it begins with a C.
Okay. Okay.
And then the whole issue of how the Who You Crappin' got started when he was talking about you seem resigned to the fate, and Ditka said, "Well, you were the guy that wrote about it that I had too much fire, so who you crapping?" and on Terry's last show, Harvey Wells, who was one of the initial program managers when the Score started, he goes, "Boy, you ran that thing for 25 years, didn't you?"
Man.
So good thing, good book. If anybody wants to pick it up, I'll give you my thumbs up on it.
Okay.
All right. Are we done?
Yeah, I mean,
it's almost 5 o'clock. It's dark out.
Yeah, it's dark out. John had a busy day.
John is tired.
No.
No.
And he's not tired.
Oh, he's
Did you know I called him last night and John answers the phone. He's like, "Hello," and I'm like, "John, are you okay?" He goes, "No, we're broadcasting." I'm like, so what show were you doing, John?
I was taping Paranormal Radio.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we got this one done. Another edition that can head for the Museum of Broadcast Communication right away. Put this one in the Hall of Fame. When I find out it's up on the up on your website, I'll stick it out on Facebook, and we'll get one or two people to look at it. I don't know. I had a bunch of people when I publicized this and promoted this. We had about 20 likes on our page.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Whether they'll ever listen to us again, I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe they're listening right now. Or, I mean, tomorrow.
Well, they'll
If they're listening right now, they're listening on Paranormal Radio.
That's right. That's right. All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks to the Doctor of the Dials for letting us come over here and
Thank you,
with our
John.
normal
and
nonsense.
thank you for the cup of coffee.
And put up with our silliness. We'll do this again. Right Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Excellent.
Hey, maybe we can come up with our turkeys. No, we're not. The 21st, right? That's what I
Yeah.
said. You were looking at me like, no, you're not going to do it that day. Maybe we can come up with our list of turkeys that day. I
There
don't
you
know.
go.
We haven't done one of those in a while. Anyhow, thanks for listening. Hope you had fun. I think we did too. Until the next time, we are Taillights.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, November the 8th, the year 2017 on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita. Our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS-FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Shikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, November the 7th, the year 2017. Until next time, friends, please be safe and thanks for listening. And this is 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and Jack FM 88.1 WXMS FM Harwood Heights. Have a great day, friends.